Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Barbell Benders podcast. This is Seth Todd with your co-host,
Altman Biggs.
and I'm glad to be back this week. I had a little sickness last week and ended up getting a little surgery. But our fill-in co-host, Zach Edwards, filled in for me, did a wonderful job, and he is actually back this week to help us discuss bench fixes. Zach, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good, dude. How about you guys?
Well,
I
Seth,
mean,
you take that one since you're the disabled one right
I
now.
I would I would say I can't complain, but I could complain a little bit. I wasn't here last week. I was kind of sick over the weekend. Thought I might have COVID. Didn't have COVID, strep, or the flu, but I actually had appendicitis. So got that taken out Wednesday. So I'm like 4 or 5 days recovering now. Walking is not that bad. Gotta be careful getting up and laying down. But the main thing I'm worried about is getting back to training because Nats is only a little over 2 months away, and I've still got a super katana to figure out. So this cuts into my time a little bit, but it's not a huge setback.
Hmm. Jeez, that's pretty bad, man. That's I'm not gonna lie. Like, if I had a part of me taken out, and then I had like I had a national meet coming, I'd be like, I don't know if I'm gonna compete
Part
in
of me taken out. Wow.
that.
Well, it kind of helps because when we had Chloe on, she talked about having her appendix out, and I actually contacted her, and she sent me the list of what her doctor told her to do to progress to get back into lifting. So
Oh,
that's
sweet.
actually a pretty good guide, and she's a really good resource to contact if I need any help in the recovery process as far as lifting goes.
So, Chloe, if you're listening to this, Seth thanks
Thank you very much.
you. But how much you bench, bro?
Right now, probably like the bar.
Wow, you got a long way to even, dude. If you, oh, like you can barely get 135. You can't even get like 315 in the shirt. So like, imagine
Yes,
putting
I
the shirt
can.
on. Imagine putting
Are
like
you crazy?
not full depth, not all the way
Oh,
down.
okay, okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
not a
But
touch.
imagine trying to just like pull the bar. I think you'd have to end up rowing the bar to you.
That's gonna hurt, man. He's gonna end up like busting his gallbladder or something, and then
He'll be
Yeah,
and then
back
he's
to
it
gonna
it would.
bust his small intestine, and he's gonna have to get that removed because he just needs to get everything removed now.
damn.
It'd be pretty hard to even get the shirt on.
Oh, dude, yeah, the pressure of the shirt, man, it's like Kevlar. It's gonna like fully get
It's
Yeah,
not
you.
like it's Kevlar. It is Kevlar,
Yeah.
isn't it?
it's actually polyester.
Okay, then you're
You're
right then.
wrong.
I was wrong. You're right.
Mm.
Yep, yep,
Hey.
yep. Don't get your hopes up though. That's
Bro,
But
it's still
what are
crazy.
we talking about this episode?
how much you bench, bro. That's well,
That's it.
how to fix the bench. That's one.
Yeah, so this is like a part two to our squat fix episode. But this week we're doing the bench. At some point in the coming weeks we'll do the deadlift. But we have some pretty cool guests coming up, so don't hold out hope for that because that might be a few weeks down the road. But tonight we'll be talking about how to fix your bench, problems we see that are pretty common, exercises to help them with. So why don't we go ahead and jump in?
Yeah, for sure. So
So I mean, like what I was just thinking about, like on the squat episode, we said so we start from the feet up and work up with problems that we see. But I think it's a little different for bench because the feet, and as it relates to like leg drive, that's something that's going to take a lot longer to work on and fix. So what I was thinking is it's the exact opposite. Start with the hands and like start with the grip, move down to the shoulders, lats, torso, and then kind of work from there. So one of the first things that I see is like people that have too close of a grip most of the time. Like you rarely see people that have too wide of a grip. Most of the time it's they're too close. I know Altman, he's a close grip bencher. He's got some things to say about that.
yeah,
Yeah, what do you got to say, Altman? You little
um,
close grip venture, huh?
that sounds wow. Um, it's for me like it just feels better. I feel so much stronger. Instead, a lot of things have changed. Like um, and it's coming up meat though. If I hit the numbers I'm gonna hit, that's like 100 pounds in a year on my bench. And I think for me, it's just been staying consistent with the same technique and just finding what works for me. And like I go people that are listening, my close grip is right at the end of the knurling on the bar, right before you get to the smooth part. That's how close my grip is, and it feels fantastic.
It's insane.
Yeah, yeah.
Like literally, Altman does a bench press where I do a skull crusher. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah. But I can't even get. I get so tight at the bottom that I can't even get just the barbell itself without any weight on it. I can't even get that all the way down to my chest because I'm kind of like rowing it into my body and treating it like a row, and then just pressing it up with my lats. And then I agree with Matt Winning what he says about the bench press. The bench press is an arm exercise. It's an arm and back exercise. It's not really a chest exercise. So, because if you're doing a bench press right, your shoulder blades and everything are locked down. So it becomes more of an elbow extension, basically.
I mean, you're supposed to have some degree of shoulder movement.
But it's primarily an arm movement, a tricep movement.
Yeah. I mean, you are predominantly using your triceps, and I think that's why a lot of people do fail at lockout.
Yeah.
I think usually when you find someone who fails right off the chest, that's more so technical inefficiency. So that's not enough bracing with the lats, not enough bracing up to the bar with their stomach. Maybe their leg drive is inconsistent. Maybe they're not creating enough scapular depression. That's what Bryce Krawczyk always says. Like, have you ever tried, maybe depressing your scapula a little? Like, it's basically like that. But one thing that he also brings up too a lot, Bryce, is that like, widening out your grip can benefit. It's interesting because like I've seen Altman and Maya's progression, and we've both gotten stronger benches. His bench has exploded, and literally we went completely different directions. Like I started close grip, I went wider. He started regular grip, he went closer, and he's gotten an incredible amount of progression. I think it's honestly just finding out what works best for you. For me, I think it just leads me to have a more efficient bench press and stray away from injury, because oftentimes the one thing that gets the most irritated on bench for me is my biceps. My biceps get really, really torn up from bench. So if I'm not careful with it, I can hurt them pretty bad. So if I grip too close, it's going to have a lot of strain, like the aponeuroses on the biceps and all the tendons and ligaments and stuff. So
Yeah, I think for the most part though, when you get someone that's not very familiar with the bench, most of the time they'll have a grip that's too close. So then bringing that grip out will kind of expose them to a different type of grip, and then from there they can work, closer, further, whatever feels better for them.
Yeah.
But
one thing that like you said, just like start out with like maybe tell them to do like a push up and then say, all right, I want you to get that same position under the bar. Just like keep it simple like that. And if that doesn't feel good, then maybe try to figure out something else. But the only way that people are going to figure out if it feels good is to get stronger. And once you get strong, as you get stronger, you're gonna be like, okay, this doesn't feel as good, so let me try this. And if this feels okay, like for me, it was just an instant like close grip feels better. It wasn't like over time. It's just like, wow, that shot up. So I'm gonna do that from now on.
right. I will say this, like one thing that I do look at when I see people benching, the easiest way for me that I can tell if someone's grip is too close is if immediately off the chest their elbows flare. If your elbows immediately off the chest have to abduct and just come out for you to even get the bar up, you definitely need to consider widening out your grip. Because the reason I'm saying that is because if you're not keeping your lats in a fixed position and you're not keeping your arms and your shoulders in a fixed position, and you let your elbows just immediately come out, that's going to lead to just, it's not necessarily, oh, you're going to get injured. It's just inefficient. It's not efficient. So.
Yeah.
I think for all intents and purposes, most of the time you should try to have from your wrist down to your elbow in a straight line when you're bringing the bar down to your chest. I mean, that's really just the best way to transfer force, through your shoulder to your elbow to your wrist.
Right.
Yeah, they need to be stacked for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, bone stacking is a legitimate thing. Yeah.
And sometimes that can, if someone, like Zach said, if their elbows flare, maybe, bring their grip out, a couple fingers with and see if that helps.
Yeah.
Right. And if you ever see someone like with a really wide grip, you'll notice oftentimes that their grip is so wide that they have to compensate by internally rotating their shoulders and cocking their wrists back. So oftentimes, like, yeah, you can do that, but that's going to put a lot of pressure on your joints, man, on your wrist joint, on your shoulders. Like not having any external rotation and actually trying to cheat it with internal rotation and cocking your wrist back really bad. Like, I don't necessarily know if that's the safest way to bench press.
Yeah.
I will say this, like, if you look at guys that, like, West Side's pretty big into this, but then when they press up, like, yes, off the chest, their elbows are tucked, but then over time, they're kind of going to get more of a 90-degree angle in that shoulder because you're kind of doing the inverted J. You're trying to get that bar back over your neck because that's going to make it to where it's easier to lift there.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I do.
And then, go ahead, Zach.
I do think that it definitely varies with equip benching. Like I remember one time I was giving someone cues who's newer to lifting while we were at practice, and I set a cue that's usually given toward equip benchers, and Dylan corrected me. He's like, "Oh no, that's not really a raw cue. Like you don't need." I said like "Oh, go back toward the face," and he was like, "Oh, like that's not really like it's not necessary to do that as much." And I think that stems from West Side. Like West Side guys are really big proponents because they're all equip benchers of going down to the chest plate and then coming back up all the way toward the face to use more tricep. So with a raw guy, though, it's not as exaggerated like that.
But look at John Hack. That's what he does. That's exactly what he does. And he's got one of the biggest bench presses at
And
200 pounds.
what happens to his elbows immediately off the chest?
Yeah, but that's how you bench the most weight though. It's one of the methods he can use.
John Hack has an inefficient bench press.
I would disagree.
I'm
Okay, hold on. There's a difference. He can be inefficient, but also be strong at the same time.
Yeah, but in order to bench, what is it? He did like a 540 lift off.
It's 568.
Okay, he's got a 568 bench. You can't be inefficient and have a 568 bench at.
Yes, you can.
Pounds.
You absolutely can.
I mean,
no, you can't. Zach.
having a perfect bench is subjective because perfect is different to everybody. But like Zach's saying, there are more efficient ways to use muscles and do things.
Yeah.
I mean, just from like a pure biomechanical standpoint, right? Like looking at John Hack's bench, he's got pretty much pound for pound the best bench in the world, or at least one of them. He's literally he's pretty much the best in powerlifting right now. Yeah. Like he got a 2,000 plus total at like 198. He walks around like 205, 210, but then he cuts down. He's incredibly strong. But can you not point out that, oh, maybe he should try low bar? He probably
has.
He probably has, right? And I'm not saying he hasn't. I'm not saying that I know John Hack's training, but I also immediately like even on his lower weight sets, like when he's benching it's crazy to say that this is a lower weight, but like for him it's like 474 when he's benching that for a couple sets and reps. It's like I'm not trying to coach John Hack. I'm just saying that there are things to be fixed. Just like, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say, like, I mean, Julius Maddox doesn't necessarily have a perfect bench. He's got an incredibly strong bench, obviously. He's the strongest bench presser ever, period. But that doesn't mean that it can't be fixed. Like, to put a cap on it is to say that that's the best that it's ever going to be, and there's nothing to fix that, when in reality, that's what lifters do. They all try to fix it. Isn't that what we all try to do?
Well, that might be an inefficiency that he deems unworthy to fix because the time and effort needed to fix that would not warrant enough added poundage on his total.
True. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we're all just speculating right here.
Yeah, I just more so think that it's important to not put these people up on a pedestal and say, oh, they're perfect, they're strong, they do whatever they want. It's like, yeah, they're incredibly strong, but like I think that watching people like Sean Noriega and Owen Hubbard bench is boring. I think people who have an incredibly wide grip and an incredibly crazy arch, watching them bench is like watching paint dry. It's not.
Oh, I want to get into that argument towards the
It's
end of the episode.
okay. Well, I'm just saying, like versus watching Julius Maddox bench with a quote unquote imperfect bench, it's kind of fun to watch. Like when he sinks down into his chest and he is explosive off the chest, and he's got that like crazy like on and off leg drive where it's not active the whole time, and he just like boosts it up. It's like watching a piston. It's the most exciting thing in the world. It's like watching a football game all condensed into one bench press. It's incredible. I'm not saying that it's not crazy. I'm just saying that when you look at it, it's like, okay, Sean Noriega benches 500, Julius Maddox benches 700 plus, and Julius Maddox is stronger, but Sean Noriega is more efficient.
I feel like you two could talk about this all day.
I
And
just want to say one thing before we jump to the next thing. But okay, so if you want a big bench press, big weights, Julius Max does the same thing. His elbows kind of come out,
Right.
and that's how you. That's if you want to bench press the most weight, that's what you have to have. A beginner is going to bench press more in a straight line, but if you want to bench press the most weight, yes, you're going to have that inverted J. That's how. That just makes the lift easier.
Let me ask you a question, Altman. If you had a beginner walk into the gym and he said, "Oh, I want to bench like Julius Maddox," what would you tell him?
I said you will never bench like Julius Maddox.
I don't mean weight.
Because
I
you're
mean
not him.
form.
Huh?
I mean form. Like I want to bench like Julius Maddox. I want to have inconsistent. Like I want my elbows to come off the chest, loop out immediately, and I want to sink the bar into my chest. Let's say it's a 130-pound kid who is nowhere near Julius Maddox's size, and he benches a plate.
Well, if they come and tell me all that stuff, I'm be like, wow. First, let's just see if you can know what it means to even bench press. Let's see if you can do a push up first, and then let's go to your bench press.
And that's how you teach efficiency.
But again, if you want to bench press the most weight, if you want to bench press the most weight possible, that's what you need to do.
So are you saying that are you saying that there's a trade-off between efficiency and strength? Like you have to be inefficient to be strong?
I never said that. No.
Well, then what are you saying?
Well, both lifters are very efficient. John Hack and Julius Maddox. Their bench presses. For you to be the best in the world at bench press, you're gonna have to be efficient at it. For you to have,
You have to be more efficient.
For you to have an 800-pound bench press, something that most people won't even ever deadlift in their life, you have to be efficient. And
What about
efficiency can be taken many different ways. You have motor units, you have motor fiber recruitment. So yes, they can be more efficient that way. Maybe they might not be as. I'm not going to say they're not technically sound. They're technically sound for their body. I would never go up to John Hack and Julius Max and say, like, you should change this. I'd be like, I can't even bench 400 pounds. How am I going to tell you how to bench press?
Okay. Okay, well, how about this, right? Have you ever seen Kyler Willem deadlift before?
Oh yeah.
So he doesn't pull slack out of the bar, right?
I mean, it works for him. I'm not going to
He
tell him how to
doesn't.
do it.
He doesn't wedge with his hips.
that's the point right there. It works for them.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell him how to bench. I'm not going to tell him
So-
how to deadlift.
I would say efficiency more broadly. Okay, I see what you're saying now. So you're saying that that it's efficient for them and that they can use it to their advantage.
Yes, it's efficient for them. I'm not saying it's going to be efficient for everybody because people have done it different ways.
I think it works for them. I think there's a difference between it being efficient and it working.
Well, for it to work for them, they have to be efficient at it.
They have to do it over and over, so they have to be used to it.
That means they have to be more efficient at that lift, at doing it that way.
I would just say that efficiency more broadly can be applied over a normal basis. For example, like you would never tell someone when they first start out, "Oh yeah, I don't think that you should wedge your hips against the bar. I think you should just pull the slack out, or not even pull slack out. I think you should just like run into the bar." But Kyler Willem does it. So there's exceptions. I don't necessarily think you should say it's efficient for them. I think you should say they're just exceptions. Like they don't need technique. They're strong. They don't need technique. But I think that when you say that, I think it makes it a little bit more accessible, because if you just say, "Oh, like it's efficient for them," well, then a bunch of other people are just going to think that they're genetic freaks, and then they're going to go do it, and they're going to.
They have to find what's efficient for, like me. I'm totally more different than you, Zach. I'm much more different than
Yeah,
Zach. I'm more
that's
efficient
true.
at a closer grip bench press because it just feels better, and I think that's what it comes down to. If John Hack, if it feels better for him to do that, then and he can lift the weight that way, that's what he's going to do. In powerlifting, you lift the most weight you can using whatever method's possible.
Yeah, I don't want to like draw a blanket statement where it's like, oh, like to be efficient, you have to bench wide. To I don't know, to deadlift, you have to do this. Like I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm just more so saying that 95% of people don't know how to brace properly. 95% of people don't know how to get their lats tense on a bench press.
I'm not gonna put numbers out there for like
I mean,
percentages.
it's just like
I'll say
it's
like
just
some people
arbitrary.
don't. But
Yeah,
How,
so like
how about this? How about we talk about lats?
okay.
Because I know you guys could go on for another 30 minutes about
Let's
okay, let's talk about lats, Seth.
talk about lats. This is my favorite muscle anyway.
lats. In my opinion, the most underrated muscle for all three lifts,
Agreed.
especially for the bench press. Well, I don't know. I'd say it's pretty even for the bench press and the deadlift for them being
I mean,
active and used.
well, like Zach mentioned, like for you to be strong off the chest, you're gonna have to have big back, big upper back, big lats, and what's gonna drive you off the chest. Um, Once
I
those are
still
bigger and
use lats
stronger,
in my
and you can learn
squats.
how to road in, that's what's gonna make that happen.
Mm.
So I don't think a lot of people when you tell them to tighten their lats, I don't think they really understand what
Yeah.
that means.
Um. So for
Like
me, I just think about a row. I'm trying to row the bar to me. I'm pulling it to my chest instead of just dropping it.
yeah. So I think it's really about when you get your grip set, trying not necessarily to bring your elbows in, but to, obviously everyone knows where the lats are. Just like Dylan told me for a deadlift, I think this cue could also work for bench, tighten your lats. Try to imagine you're squeezing an egg, like in between your armpit. But
Yeah.
that also has to go with, scapular depression and squeezing your shoulder blades together on the bench and using that as a base to transfer force from the floor to your shoulder blades and then using your lats to, keep them tight and push the bar.
Yeah, it's also about like using using like external rotation of the shoulder. So like if you're in a bench press, that's the idea of like, oh, you got to bend the bar, like that cue of bend the bar, bend the bar, bend the bar that like is used all the time that a lot of people don't understand. Like bend the bar is from rotating your shoulders outward so that you can pull those scapula down, so that you can get your teres minor involved and all these crazy muscles, so that you can actually get tightness. Like versus if you see someone deadlift, same thing as you said, like with the lats being used in the deadlift. If you see someone deadlift and the first thing that you see is just like them tightening downward, that's kind of the idea. Versus if you see someone, we've all seen like a beginner deadlift where they just kind of bend down, pick it up. There's no tightness there. So like bringing that tension downward almost and just a pure depression standpoint, that's going to get the lats working.
I think that cue, bend the bar, could actually work better than a lot of other cues to get the lats tight than saying get the lats tight. And what we mean by bend the bar is, I guess it's kind of hard to envision because this is, audio only. But try to, when you have the bar over you, try to imagine if it was like a PVC pipe to bend the ends of the plates closer to your feet.
Mm.
Like when you're gripping the bar, try to take, I guess, the knuckle from your pointer finger and turn it outwards
Mm.
like that. And
Yeah.
that might help somebody get that cue to tighten the lats because you can't really try to bend the bar without tightening the lats.
Yeah, I think it's important to just like the reason why I guess I said like I almost acted like bend the bar is kind of like overused. I don't necessarily just think that it's that cue. I think that more broadly it's important to kind of not just use like these 3 or 4 word cues as like, oh, this is the end all be all. Like the one thing that I hate about like when people teach squats is like, oh, knees out, knees out, knees out, knees out, turn your knees out. Like, yeah, you could do that. And it works for some people, but there's a lot more ways to teach it than just saying a 2 or 3 or 4 word cue.
I think different cues should be used until you find the one that works for that person.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, that's what
I mean, I
coaching
know we
is.
talked about, yeah, exactly. Like figuring out what the athlete does and doesn't respond to,
Yep.
and if a single cue is not working, like tighten your lats using something else.
Yeah.
like pinch an egg or like touch your shoulder blades together or bend the bar.
Yep.
Seth, you're starting to sound like a coach.
I don't know enough to be a coach yet.
We'll see. We shall see.
I'd love to see it, bro. I'd love to see you like get like 5 clients and just work with them. Like it'd be interesting. I think it'd be cool.
Bro, I would love to help anybody.
If you're listening to this, hit Seth up.
Dude,
For all your equipment needs.
Seth Todd 76. Hit him up on Instagram. Blow up his DMs. Make him a better coach by being a better client. Logo right there.
There you go. Blanket statement.
Blanket statement, 100%. You should be a coach, bro. 100%.
But yeah, so we all agree the lats are super important. There's a ton of different cues to try to trigger them, but you have to use the lats and the shoulder blades in conjunction
Yeah.
to really form that base behind your shoulders.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's gonna be very different from movement to movement because like on squats, like for me, I'm gonna say like I suck at using my lats on squats. I'm so bad at it. I do not get tight enough. I do not grab the bar tight enough. I've realized that from looking at my videos. I just constantly get bent over and bent forward and whatever. It's annoying. On bench, I'm pretty good at it, and deadlift, I'm okay at it. So it's like it's gonna work differently. Like one thing that like is important too is that like the lats aren't just used, as like this rowing muscle. It's your lats are also used to help with bending your spine. Your spine can bend. It's shocking, I know, to hear because you hear like all these Instagram accounts, these really really popular Instagram accounts saying that your spine can't take a load and your spine is so like fragile and you can't you have to use your belt at 80% minus or else you're not lifting right. But no, your spine can bend. It's okay. So you can use your lats to kind of get more thoracic extension. So on the bench press, it's very important. You get a good arch from your lats and get them tight and pull them down with some scapular compression, and you got yourself a good bench press.
Let's kind of tighten that up. Instead of saying like your spine can bend, well, yes, your spine can definitely bend, but under extreme load, it's probably not best for your spine to bend.
No, you shouldn't
Let's just get
look
that
like
across so no one comes
you
back and
shouldn't
say,
look like the letter C when you shouldn't look like the letter C when you
Yeah,
deadlift.
yeah.
I'm not saying that.
So-
I'm just more saying that like if someone had like a perfect example is like Konstantin Konstantinovos. Like that dude has like one of the craziest deadlifts of all time. I think he pulled like high nines or low thousands and like he was ripped to the gills and whatever and like his spine bent.
Yeah.
Like he had some spinal flexion. Don't get me wrong. That's one of those things I also think is inefficient. Like if you're, it's not necessarily the most efficient thing in the world to just get like a crazy bend in your back and, but it's not going to kill you unless you just are like exaggerated with it and you're not bracing. I think that's what's more important, just bracing.
Yes, but this lats. I think what Zach's getting at too is like the lats will stop your spine from bending. Let's just make it simple like that. When you tighten your lats, those are basically your lats are stabilizers for your shoulders,
Yeah.
for your entire upper body. They stabilize your body. If you guys watch Julius Maddox, he does like these massive. And Josh Bryant too. He programs him for a lot of his athletes. He does the bench press holds with like he did it with Julius Maddox like 815, and that's just going to test your stabilization, so your lats. So usually most people I hear they're like, yeah, my lats are really sore after that. Well, that's kind of the point of them. Same thing with deadlift. If you're kind of like Seth mentioned, kind of like squeezing that egg, it's your stabilizers. I mean, your lats are stabilizing your spine so it doesn't go into a rotation. That's the point of your lats.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. 100%. There's stabilizers for your spine. 100%.
Perfect. So as we move from the lats down the body, we get to the core, arch, bracing, all that. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
Wait, we didn't mention the shoulder blades.
Okay, yeah, shoulder
Your upper
blades.
back. So like,
Oh, favorite group of muscles.
yes, I 100% believe that. Like, I've done a lot of pull-ups in the past, but the more upper back work I do, the stronger everything gets. So yes, I will say that pull-ups and stuff work great, but I'll say my lats have gotten bigger from doing farmer carries and deadlifts than they have from pull-ups.
Wow, what a guy.
But yeah. So wait, what was I going with that? So
I don't
your
know.
upper back, your upper back.
Oh, okay.
So like your upper back it shouldn't be completely like scrunched up and everything. Like you do want a little bit of depression. Like people say all the time, pull your shoulder blades in, which is great for beginners. Great cue, great cue. But eventually you're gonna have to learn how to just bring them back and depress them at the same time because you do want a little. Your shoulder blade is gonna have a little bit of movement for you to bench press. It's not if it's completely locked, you won't be able to do anything.
Yeah.
You feel me? So it's just a guessing game on learning. Okay, what's just enough that I can kind of keep my shoulders safe, and then but still bench press without looking like an idiot doing it.
Dude, yeah. If anybody wants to know about upper back work, it's Altman. It's like, dude's V taper is ridiculous. It's just like literally the letter V. It's,
Lots of rows.
lots of rows,
A lot of
lots of
band
farmer
pull-ups.
carries.
Yeah, a lot of band pull-ups too. Dude, if there was one lift that single-handedly made all my lifts increase, the farmer carry. It's the end-all be-all of exercises.
I might need to try those, man.
Dude,
100%.
after this meet, I'm doing them again.
I like suitcase carries, man. They're a little bit less taxing on my body, and they help me stabilize my spine a little bit.
Yep.
So I feel like I'm getting a little bit more of isolation work on the lat, on the QL muscle, the quadratus labrum, and just helping out with actual pressure in my abdominal instead of just like,
for sure.
like I feel like farmer carries can be used, and I think farmer carries are honestly, from what I understand, they're a really good overload exercise. So you can put some pretty massive weights on there and deadlift it up and then carry it and carry it and carry it, and it's great. For me, like I said last episode, I do get taxed pretty hard from doing certain movements, and I feel like programming in heavy farmer carries probably would do more detriment than it would benefit for me.
It does take long to recover, for sure.
Yeah, versus like having a dumbbell, relatively heavy dumbbell, and using suitcase carries, I think that would help me a lot more.
Yeah, it's about finding what works. But Seth, what
So
you
you
got?
getting bored?
Huh?
About just the shoulder blades or
Yeah.
arch and core. I think, like both of y'all said, the shoulder blades, they should be tight, depressed, and maybe people need to think about it more as using them as a base for your bench.
Yeah.
Like you can't have a big bench if you have a weak back. I mean that's obvious. But using your back as a base, I mean obviously your shoulders can't come up in the bench press if you're competing, as well as your butt and your feet and your head. I don't know why that head thing is a rule. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But once we start talking about the leg drive later in the episode, the leg drive should transfer from your feet to your butt to your shoulders, and all that power should be used to press the bar.
And I think it should be noted that leg drive should be pretty much consistent throughout. I think it's the same thing with glute drive. Like I don't necessarily think it's the best idea to just like one thing that you see a lot with beginners, right? Is that you see them have no arch, you'll see them have no scap tightness, no lat tightness, no scapular depression.
Flat back.
And flat back, right? And elbows flared out, and they'll go down to their chest. And when you notice, one thing that happens, it's pretty much two things. A, they activate leg drive after the bar comes off the chest, and B, their butt comes up immediately off the bench. So why is that? I really think the reason why that is because you think, oh, I have to use leg drive, so I have to extend my lumbar. How do you extend your lumbar? You just push your glutes through. So then your glutes just fly off the bench. And I think that if you teach someone like, oh, keep your glutes quote unquote activated the whole time, like use them the whole time, use your quads the whole time. I think that's really important, both down to the chest and up off the chest.
I don't know if you should be doing leg drive like while the bar's coming down to you. I think I agree with like getting tight and everything.
Why not?
I see it as more of like, yes, I'm using my legs and my everything there to get tight, and I'm pulling the bar to me. And if I'm not gonna do two motions of this. I'm not gonna try to push my legs and pull the bar to me at the same time.
It's possible though.
Now, yeah, I'm saying it's not possible, but when I'm thinking
Yeah.
about pulling the bar to me, and then when I press up, I'm thinking about, all right, now I push to the floor.
Mm.
I'm still tight and everything, but I'm not pushing the floor away while bringing the bar down.
Why?
Yeah,
It just doesn't make sense
I
to me.
see. I see what you're saying, and it might have a little bit more carryover in equip lifting versus raw lifting, but I still think you should have consistent leg drive throughout the whole movement because it it does add to the whole body tightness as far as like because like you said, you want to row the bar to you and pull the bar to you, and using a leg drive can add to that. What's the word? That pressure that I don't know the word for it.
The main thing for me that I think about, the reason why I think that way is because I have done both. So just to clarify, like I have had the sort of like flat back bench and like use my legs on the latter half of the movement off the chest and not toward the chest. For me, when I started using leg drive the entire movement, 100% of the time, like by the time I take the bar out, one thing that I found is that that's going to lead to you being able to push your sternum up toward the bar. And why is that important? Well, it's going to allow for better bracing. It's going to allow for the bar to be able to come down onto a legitimate shelf and for you to actually get your upper back tighter. Versus if you let yourself row your entire body toward or off the bench, oftentimes it's going to make you want to pick your head off the bench. Number two, that's going to make you want to lose your arch and all of your upper back tightness. And number three, your butt might fly off the bench. It's kind of like your body almost being a seesaw. If you don't use consistent leg drive, that seesaw is going to tip and then it's going to tip back. So that's kind of what I think of using consistent leg drive the 100% of the time of the movement. By the time you out.
So by leg drive, you're meaning like pressing into the floor, trying to. You mean like pressing into the floor the entire time, like pressing.
Yeah.
Like I agree with getting tight and everything, but trying to press the bar up when I'm bringing it down, that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, you got to think about it like this too. If you're using your lower body, if your entire lower body, right? Let's think your lower body being um just as a blanket term, let's say it's your belly button down and then upper body is like belly button up. I think that's a fair assumption, right? If you
Okay.
use your lower body to push yourself back toward yourself and you use your upper body to row the bar into you, what's going to happen? Well, if you're rowing with your upper body and you're pushing back with your lower body, then that arch is going to be incredible. That arch is going to be consistent the entire time. Versus if your entire body is going one direction, your back's going to flatten. It's going to at least more often than not flatten. And it's going to be harder to maintain upper back tightness too. I think using leg drive to maintain an arch it's a legitimate thing, and you can also use it to get your glutes. Now, I'm not a fan of like getting such a crazy arch that like 70% of your glutes are off the bench. I don't like that. That just doesn't seem like safe to me. Like, but yeah.
I think one thing that Zach mentioned is worth noting. When you use leg drive for the whole movement, like when you push with your legs, it raises your sternum and your belly closer to the bar.
Right.
For one, that obviously lowers the distance that you have to go, raises your chest so you don't have to get the bar as low. I think without using leg drive in the first part of the movement is something that people like Julius Maddox do when they really only rely on the second half of the movement and from the chest press up, you know? Like why not use another half of your body with arguably more muscle to assist in the movement?
Yeah, but you're not pressing the weight up. When you bring the weight down, your legs are there to stabilize you, and just to keep your entire body from moving. Then when you press the weight up, that's when you transfer the force to the bar. You're not
Right,
transferring the
but
force to the bar while the bar's going down. That's counterproductive. You're
well,
making
but
it harder
shouldn't
on
you
yourself.
be well, but shouldn't you be stable the whole time?
I never said you weren't going to be stable the whole time. I said that when you're on the
Well,
way down, that's the main point of the legs is to stabilize you, make sure everything's tight. Then on the way up, they're still stabilizing you, but they're pressing the weight up. If you're pressing with your legs and pulling down and then coming down with the bar, that's counterproductive. You're doing more work with your legs than you should. You're taking away your energy. You're using too much energy just to bring the bar down to your chest. When all you should be worried about bringing the bar down to your chest is just making sure everything's tight and stable.
Well, I think that saying that using your legs the entire time.
Like look at the best bench pressers in the world. The, their legs are flexed, but when they push the bar up, that's when you can see like their rectus femoris come alive. And when they press the bar up, not when they pull the bar down. Sure, they're tight, but they're not like you're not seeing their entire rectus femoris contract the entire time. If that was the case, you wouldn't be able to do that for the entire lift. That's a very
Well,
long time to contract your quads.
Sean Noriega has the best bench press in his weight class. He does that.
Let's see.
I think, like Zach said, like when you're pushing with your lower body and rowing the bar to you with your upper body, they create like a spring, and I think that can help a lot of people when they're bringing the bar down to them to get tighter and tighter. And then when you get that press command, using everything to press it back up.
I think when you focus so much on the latter half of the movement and only activating muscles on the latter half of the movement, you're cheating yourself out on being stable the entire time.
I didn't say they weren't activated. Like they have to be activated for you to stabilize yourself. That's
Yeah, I don't necessarily mean like, oh, let's just like get a leg pump from benching. I just more so mean like making sure that they are working. So like for example, like if you with the seesaw analogy earlier, right? Like if you're just focusing on like just have to pull the bar toward me and then after the bar comes off my chest. Well, for me, what's going to happen with that, your entire body is going to follow the bar, right? I mean, I would say that. Like when you're not using your legs the entire time and almost pushing backward, like a cue that I like to use is like pushing paper away, like almost put a piece of paper underneath your feet and then act as though you're pushing the paper away from you. You're almost extending at the knee. So you're literally using your quadriceps as a knee extensor to push yourself backward. So that like if you were doing it really, really hard, which you don't need to during warm-ups, but like let's say you had the bar, if you're doing it really hard, you would like fly backwards, like off the bench. But obviously you don't need to do that. That would make you look stupid in the gym and you would probably get laughed at.
I do that.
No, I mean like literally like you fall off, just fly like Superman backwards. But like I guess what I more so mean is that if you have your quads active the whole time and you extend your knees the whole time, I really think that's going to lead to a better brace.
Okay, that's what you mean. I thought you meant like pressing through the ground the entire time. Yes, of course. I'm trying to. That's why. Okay. Now we're getting. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. So, yes, I do like. Yes, my legs are trying. I have my feet flat on the ground. I'm trying to kind of leg. I'm doing a leg extension, but
Yeah.
I'm not pushing through the ground yet. I'm just using them as a leg extension just to keep my body stable. And then when I press the bar, that's kind of when I do that little jolt thing that helps me press the bar. I'm not trying to push my legs through the ground the entire time.
Yeah, I just think that oftentimes, like when you see one issue, like one technical issue, you'll oftentimes see a bunch. So, like when you see, oh, like this person doesn't really activate leg drive at the beginning of the movement, you'll also oftentimes see someone dump their scaps, like dump their scapula behind the bar and lose tightness. And then you'll see a lack of upper back tightness. And you'll also see a loss of arch and then elbow flare. They all kind of work like synchronously to where like I talked to Seth about it, but like when you watch like Form Check Fridays, it's almost like the same doggone cue over and over and over. Because like to be honest, doesn't everyone kind of almost mess up the same way? It happens very often. So yeah, I mean that's more so what I was getting at. Just focusing on kind of pushing the floor away, but just maintaining consistent leg drives so that you don't lose your arch, so that you don't lose that upper back tightness, and so that you can stay stable.
Okay. So, okay, but we're talking about like this. We're talking about the same thing, but I have a different cue for it. I don't.
Okay.
I just have it where I put my legs as far back as I can.
Yeah.
I don't think about driving to the ground. I just think about putting them as far back as I can to where they're stretched and they're being used.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about like pressing through the ground though.
And you're also like, let's keep in mind too. I think that this can get kind of lost in translation. Altman's benching like 315 plus.
Yeah.
Like I think that's something like important to note. Where like I think people can oftentimes listen to these episodes and be like, oh, these guys are kind of smart, but like I don't know if I should listen to them. Like Seth is like deadlifting almost 600 pounds. Like I think it's important to kind of note that like we have like at least the hosts have a good amount of experience in the sport and they're strong and they understand what they're talking about. So like with Altman, yeah, you stretch out your legs, you get a good consistent leg drive, like dude, whatever works,
Yeah,
100%.
but I just wasn't under. When I think of leg drive, I think of pushing the ground the entire time. That's what I think of. But what I if I'm thinking you're explaining it right, well, if I'm getting what you're explaining, then I'm doing it right, but I'm not calling it leg drive. I'm just calling
Well,
it. I'm calling it getting tight.
and I think that this highlights how really different cues can work.
Like Seth mentioned, yeah.
Right, yeah. Seth mentioned that like different cues work for different people, et cetera, et cetera. Like Altman and I just went on a 20-minute tangent on like the difference between leg drive versus leg tightness. Like the fact that our brains work that differently, it makes sense. Like we're humans. Like our brains are the craziest supercomputers of all time. Not even compared or contested. But like yeah, it's important to understand. Like if you're telling someone over and over, spread the floor, spread the floor, spread the floor on squats or deadlifts or whatever, and they don't get it, try something else.
Yeah, yeah. Cool.
Like okay, so I do think using leg drive for the whole bench does apply more to equip lifting. For one, it's harder to stabilize the weight in a bench shirt, and two, like I was saying earlier, when you're using your leg drive on the descent of the bar, it kind of creates like a spring effect as you get tighter and tighter come down to your chest. That's already happening with the shirt. So for equip lifting, I think it's really important to use leg drive throughout the whole movement.
Hmm.
Like it's a little more important on the descent of the bar. Just just because you need that added stability because it is so much harder to stabilize in a shirt.
Yeah,
Sure.
I feel like it is. I mean, obviously, I don't know. I don't know. Like, Seth? This is a good question. Do you follow any like really strong like equip benchers? Because like we've talked about a lot of raw benchers, but like you being an equip bencher, you would probably follow like someone like that.
I really only keep up with Jimmy Kolb. He just did a meet this weekend actually where he set another all-time world record, um, all-time bench record in the 308 class as well as all-time single ply record. He did a 1050 bench in a single ply super katana, which is insane.
Jeez.
And that man is just a unit of all units.
Drug free.
Dude,
Yeah, yeah, drug free too.
drug free, drug
Yeah,
tested or drug free?
Drug free.
drug free.
Oh, okay.
He's got a wicked mohawk too.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
for
looking at
real?
him now. See if y'all can see that. It's 1,050 pound.
And he's done like 1200 in multiply.
Oh, really? Whoa,
Yeah.
that's insane. Yeah, I've heard of this guy before. I've heard his name. I've heard he's an insane bencher. Yeah, he's
He has a podcast too.
really. What's it called?
Yeah, the Kolb Strong Power podcast. He has like really short episodes, like 10, 15 minutes.
Like little tidbits.
Yeah.
Little tidbits on how to get a 1,200-pound multiply bench.
Dude, that's insane.
And kind of half of them are geared toward like equip benching. But some of them are, really just like basic bench tips.
Seth, maybe you can explain this to me, but like, I can never tell when a equip bencher locks out a bench. I watched the dude do it. I was like, did he lock that out? I can't even tell.
Yeah.
They just stay there for
Yeah,
a second.
sometimes it's hard to tell. I think it's really up to the judge's judgment on whether they're locked out or not. I mean, you can take it with a grain of salt that yeah, he's benching over 1,000 pounds, so absolutely locking your elbows may not be the safest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, as long as the judge thinks they're locked as much as he can, I mean that kind of goes back to the depth argument
Yeah.
on judges. But
True.
we won't get into that today.
Yeah. I just saw a video on here too though, of him doing a 650-pound four-board reverse grip bench.
Oh yeah, he does a lot of reverse grip.
It-
Like
it's
he can
an
What?
take
impressive movement.
he can take four wheels for like a set of 10 or 12 on reverse grip
Wow.
bench.
That's
It was
insane.
funny. I saw someone on Instagram the other day like, you need to do reverse grip bench for your lower pecs. I was like, Dude, you are doing it way. You are thinking the way so wrong here. The funny
I
thing is
hate
that the dude has a really small chest. He's got
I
some,
hate
has
when
some
people
joints in
say
it.
that.
Yeah.
I hate when people say like, "Oh, you have to do this specific movement to work like the medial glute," or like you have to do this movement to activate the lateral head or the long head of the bicep, or this movement to activate like the medial head of the tricep. It's like, dude, that's not how anatomy works. Like, you can't just specific.
Isolation.
Like,
Like
yeah, exactly.
once it really doesn't matter about isolating like individual muscles within the muscle.
If you,
So like Zach said, like a single head of the tricep or a single part of the quad. That really doesn't matter unless you're like Kai Green level, when you can actually see the definition of each individual muscle within the quad.
Those people make my brain hurt. Those are the people who like drink monsters and mass gainers. Like, I cannot stand those people, man. Like, oh, you have to like Altman said, like, oh, like you have to do this for the lower pec. Meanwhile, this dude's got a bird chest, and this is coming from someone who his whole life has had a bird chest. Like, dude,
like
like,
he was
stop.
saying, like if you want to target your lower pec, I was like, dude, if have you ever felt what a reverse grip bench does for you? You don't feel it in your chest.
Just bitch, dude. Like, and this is coming from someone who's like, I'm a perpetual overthinker. Like, I overthink everything to the point of insanity, and even I think that that's ridiculous. Like, just saying like, oh, you have to like this specific muscle fiber or this myofilament of like this shoulder. Like, you have to
Yeah.
do. It's like, dude, like just squat more, just bench, do some heavy stuff, and like just have, and more importantly, dude, like have fun. Like when you bench, you shouldn't be thinking like overthinking the cues. Like think about cues, think about technique for sure. But also like if you hit a bench PR and you're like, oh, the bar kind of got away from me. It's like, dude, you hit a bench PR. Like be happy about it.
So, what do you boys think about this recent controversy over the bench width and the arch?
Altman, please talk first.
Zach, you know a lot more on this than I do. I'm pretty indifferent because it's not going to affect me. But like, I mean, I'm cool with them going as wide as they want to. If they can bench more than me, they can bench more than me. That's fine with me. I mean, they're just a better lifter that way. It just makes better competition for me. I don't hate them for doing it. If people want to bench wide, let them bench wide. If they want to bench 2 inches away from the hands 2 inches away from each other, shit, let them do that. It doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna lie. I'm so torn on this topic. Like, I find myself every other day changing my mind. Like, literally. It's so because so for me, I'll basically explain like the two halves of my brain with this and then describe like the middle ground. So one part of me is like, so I think the two main people to like look at, mainly one of them because he's the more recent one, but like Sean Noriega and like Owen Hubbard. Those are the two that I think when I think of like the people who like take advantage of the leniency of the powerlifting rules, right?
Well,
For like Owen and Sean, they'll create really big arches and their grips will be super, super wide and they'll internally rotate their shoulders, cock their wrist back to the point where the bench press is almost like 2 inches.
is that taking advantage
And
since it isn't?
well, I guess okay. That's a yeah. You caught me on that. That might be necessarily not necessarily the right way to put it. I don't necessarily mean taking advantage to the point where it's like cheating. I more so mean basically seeing the rule and going to the edge of the rule. It's like when your mom tells you like not to break this vase, and then you're like putting your finger up to it, and you're like break it, but you're not going to break it. It's like I'm not touching it. Like I'm not. It's that kind of thing.
Okay.
That's what Sean Noriega is doing with the IPF rules right now. Anyway, so like to me, one part of me is like, okay, that's great. Like, do you? But at the same time, it's almost like, but is it like? It's almost like, is it even a bench press? So like what I was talking about earlier with Dylan, he brought up a really good point. I don't necessarily think, and this is more so on the side that I lean to. I don't necessarily think it's important to emphasize like grip width. I definitely don't think we should start regulating arch. That just seems ridiculous to me. That seems like
That's subjective. You can't regulate arch.
yeah. So don't regulate arch. Grip width's a little weird. What I think that, and Dylan got on a good point with this. I think what should be regulated is how much of your glute is on the bench. Like if you get to a point where half of your glutes or more are off the bench, that means that like your lumbar is in so much extension that it might not even really be a bench press. It might almost be a board press. Like it's kind of crazy that way. Um,
Well, that's another thing. Like we said, the arch is subjective to each judge. You can't quantify that in a rule. That's the
right.
same thing with the glute being on the bench. That's subjective. You can't
Yeah, yeah.
like go up with a measuring tape and measure how much of someone's butt is on the bench. I think the purpose of this rule is because, and I'm like you, Zach. I could go either way with it. And the purpose of the rule is grip width is the only part of the bench that you can really quantify in a rule
Hmm.
to make sure people are actually benching. And like I remember, I can't remember exactly, the width that they talked about, like Candido talked about. Obviously, it wouldn't really affect me. There's not really a whole lot of 105s that have a 2-inch bench.
Right.
It's more the smaller guys and the girls. There are some girls that can get set up with the bench, unload the bar, and it is already touching their chest.
Right.
Like it won't affect me or my competition, but I don't know. Like it's within the rules. It is. Like you're doing what you physically can to lift the most weight possible, but I don't know. I'm kind of
I,
half and half with it.
I do think that there is a middle ground though. So on one side, right, I described one side where I was like, oh, like this is great. Like you're benching this insane amount of weight. On the other side, I'm like, it doesn't really seem like that much of a bench press to me. The middle ground that I keep coming to every single time I start thinking about the subject is who cares?
Yeah,
Honestly.
yeah, yeah.
Like, who actually cares? If you see Sean Noriega benching 500 pounds at 183, and the first thing you think of is, oh, he's arching too much, you have something wrong in your head. Like, you are trying to put someone else down for having really good genetics. So I
Or just
don't
for
like
figuring things out.
when I yeah, when I see it, it's like, yeah, he picked really good parents. Like he's really flexible. He's got a that's great. But at the
He picked good parents.
yeah, that's the joke that I always
That,
make. Like
that's a Greg Doucette thing. He picked the right
yeah,
parents.
yeah. It's like oh, if you hate that you can't get on the stage for the Olympia, sorry, you should have picked better parents. That's like the whole. It's a joke. But like
It's a joke.
yeah,
Yes,
but
yes, Seth, it's a joke, man. Don't take things so seriously.
it's a joke, man. Lighten up. But like. Seth told me not to make him laugh on this episode because his appendix or his lack thereof of appendix is hurting him. But yeah, I don't think you should care, man. Like if for example, like who we were talking about earlier, John Hack. If John Hack one day decided that he just wanted to get more flexible, and all of a sudden seems like he can get really really flexible, and he's benching 600 at 198, who cares? Let him bench 600 at 198. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't really matter.
Who cares about the sport anyway?
I mean,
Yeah,
if they
not a
can
lot of
outbench me,
people.
they can outbench me. If it's the sport of who can lift the most weight. If that allows you to miss, if that allows you to lift the most weight, if that allows you to miss the most weight, yeah, if that allows you to lift the most weight, do it. I mean,
At the end of the day, what is this sport? It's the sport of intense exercise. You're literally paying the USAPL to make other people watch you work out. It's like cool, awesome. Who cares? Like it doesn't matter.
no, that's what
I mean,
Olympia
yeah,
is.
the rule it wouldn't affect me or my competition. I don't have very much of an arch anyway. My arms are way too long to make a difference on that. But I mean, I could carry either way. It doesn't really matter.
I dude, I got a rotated spine, so I can't even get like that. Like those crazy arches and stuff, I feel like my back would just bend to the right and just indefinitely. I would just like constantly just sway off the bench like a helicopter. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, I
you know
guess
my
like
stance.
if you find the sport of powerlifting and your proportions work really well, like people who can sumo deadlift and once they're locked out, the bar is like 3 inches off the ground. I mean, more power to you.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I don't think people should be penalized for how long their arms are when they deadlift. Like Drew Ha, he's a I think he's a 183, and I think he's like 20 years old, and I think he deadlifts like 720. It's like insane,
Wait, how old is
and
he?
he's like 20. He's like 20 years old.
Wow.
Let me try to find him real quick. I don't want to, I don't want my Instagram escapades to take up the whole episode, but like I guess I'm more so like use him as an example. Yeah, Andrew Ha. Let's see.
Ha.
All-time world record natural pull. Get ready. This is insane. 722 pounds at 165.
What's this dude's name?
That his name's Andrew Ha. Andrew H.A.
Has he been on
And
King of the List pretty recently?
he's been on the King list a few times. Let me try to find one of his deadlifts just to show you guys what I mean. Yeah, okay.
What's
Let me
how do you spell the last name?
It's just
HA.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Seth.
Ha.
I mean, I saw on Instagram there were a bunch of different like ha-hoos and whatever.
How complicated can it be?
Back off.
Jeez.
Look at how long his arms are though. I know this is only audio, so no one can see, but literally Andrew, he's deadlifting 749 here, so he's actually pulling more in the gym that he pulled as an all-time world record, and he made it look.
I mean, Russell Orr, he can basically touch his knees standing up.
Russell's another good example, and he doesn't even sumo. He pulls conventional. Like that's even more range of motion. So if Russell or he decided to change to conventional or sumo from conventional, especially with how crazy his quads are, he would be pulling probably 750 plus. Like,
Yeah, maybe. I think it's too though, like just what feels better. I mean, he
Yeah.
still has a 700-pound deadlift.
yeah, Russell doesn't need to change a thing. And the same thing with all the lifters we talked about. Like, I'm just because I say something's like inefficient doesn't mean I hate it. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, John Hack should change his 568 bench because some 19-year-old kid who's an idiot said so. It's like, no, like, do you? I don't care. Like, I just more so mean like, I mean, try it, experiment. John's probably tried squatting low bar and he hates it, and it's death. And he still squats like 750 high bars. So, dude, all power to you, Russell. Or he's probably tried sumo. I know Russell's tried sumo because I've watched a video on it.
That's really what this comes to is like, do whatever feels best for you.
Yeah.
And more importantly, stop caring about other people. Like, stop caring about other people's lifts. Like, stop. Like, stop going in King of the Lifts comment sections. If you're that guy who goes in like King of the Lifts comment sections and like hates on someone with long arms and like hates on some, like, understand too, powerlifting is the ultimate game of rock, paper, scissors, right? If you have long arms, your bench is going to suck probably at first, and your deadlift is going to be amazing. If you have short arms, your bench is probably going to be great, and your deadlift's probably going to suck. Like, if you have long femurs, like me, your squats are going to be ugly, really ugly. But, like, you can fix it. It's okay.
Yeah, like who really cares what you're lifting? Like nobody.
As long as he can lift, if he can lift more weight, he can lift more weight.
So that's what it comes down to. Total.
That's as simple as you can put it for the sport of powerlifting.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think like when people get super like going back to the bench press, like I think when people get super hung up over like someone's arch or someone's grip width or like stuff like that, I think it just highlights like how much do you bench, bro?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. The people who
honestly.
usually are like super picky are the ones who can't bench shit.
Like if you can bench 2.25, it's like great. You got a 275 bench, but those guys are usually like 225. So they wouldn't even be competitive in powerlifting anyway. So haha. Like jokes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Haha, I'm not competitive yet.
Haha, dude, I'm not competitive at all. It made me laugh when you guys invited me on this episode. I'm like, dude, you guys are way stronger than me, so your opinions are probably a lot more valid than mine are. Like, go right ahead.
I don't think strength should always coincide with knowledge or just being able to discuss powerlifting topics.
Yeah.
Like you can talk powerlifting pretty well, like you're very inquisitive. I think that's what matters.
Yeah, yeah. But like we were talking about earlier, but Zach, me and you aren't gonna go up to John Hack or Julius Maddox and tell him how to bench press.
No.
Like that's just not gonna happen because one, they can bench more than us. That's the main reason. And two,
Julius would eat me.
probably.
Julius would eat me. He would literally like.
But yeah,
so,
like
Did you see that video of him on Instagram where he was like shirtless and some dude was like faking like he was throwing out a TV and then Julius was like,
Oh yeah,
I want to work out. And the guy was like, no. And he was like, I want to work out. And just grabs the TV and chucks it like 30
that was the
yards.
most cringe thing I've ever seen.
Oh, it was
We
so
all knew what
funny.
was coming.
Yeah, right. Oh, I gotta take this TV junk for garbage. It's like, no, dude. Like Julius is gonna throw it because he's Julius
Yeah.
Maddox.
But Zach, what do you want to bench at this meet? What's your goal?
Yeah, let's talk about that, Zach. Let's talk about your meet coming up. You too, Altman.
Yeah.
Okay. So I actually talked to one lifter I do want to shout out. I talked to Jonathan Tintoni through some DMs about you guys know Tintoni, right?
Yeah.
I'll look him up real quick.
He's a Mississippi.
He competed at the November meet, Altman.
Oh
He was in Morgan's weight
with
class.
the beard and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, stupid strong
Yeah, he
lifter.
really
Like
is. And you like 30?
high six. Yeah, he's like 26 or 30 or something like that. I can't.
Yeah, he's been doing it a while.
Super nice dude, like awesome guy. But he so I talked to him about like differences in numbers and stuff, and like I told him like, hey, like I like ranges, so I don't really want to try to go in a meet with this like crazy number because I feel like that's just setting yourself up for failure almost. So I think that it's good to kind of have some parameters. So for me, squat, I'm hoping to move like 402 to like 413. Bench, I'm hoping around 253, 259, and then deadlift like 452, 463, somewhere around there.
Bet. Easy money.
These guys' numbers laid out in kilos.
Well, in kilos, oh gosh, what would it be? I don't know.
Nah, you already got them in kilos because those are odd numbers for pounds.
Yeah, oh yeah, dude. Like I said, I'm a perpetual overthinker. I've written in my notes all my cues that I need, every single lift that I want, minimum and maximum, every single percentage, to the point where like I actually went on Power Build. You know Power Build Gym, Sean Mills' gym, right? Colin Whitney. It's like Sean Mills works out there. Really, he's like the main lifter who works out. It's like so either way, they have online. They have a max generator, right? They have like for a meet setting specifically, and like if your goal is X weight, then this is what you should go for. Both, I think it's like conservative, and then normal, and then risky. So it's like conservative, normal, reckless. I no joke plugged in some numbers into it, found out the percentages that I needed, and then figured out a way to like basically find out the numbers that I want for this next meet. And then I was like reckless is like 102% of your goal or something. So like if you have a goal of 413, then like your lift should be, I don't know, it's like 420 or something like that. But either way, yeah, I have them all laid out. I've thought about it like for hours and hours and hours on end. But that's why like when I go to a meet, I'm so stress free because I've already thought about it.
Yeah.
Like, why think about it anymore?
Yeah.
Like,
What about you, Altman? What are your goals?
I did the same thing as you. One of my mentor at the Sanderson suggested I do that, and so I did the same thing. Like wrote everything out detail by detail of the lifts I'm going to hit. But I'm only going to take 2 attempts on squat. I'm only going to do just a 4 or 5 opener, and then I'm just going to go for my 440. Because I want to hit a pretty big bench. That's the main reason. I'm more concerned with bench because I want a big bench. And then I'm going to hit 330 on bench, and then that's when we my second attempt. And then after that, we'll see what happens. If it feels good, then I'll go up, of course. If it doesn't, then I'll just keep it there. And then deadlift, I'm opening up at what is it? I'm opening up at like 500, and then closing at 530. And
You're opening at 5?
Yeah.
jeez.
And then I'm gonna go for 530. And then if that feels good, then I'll go up a little bit more. If not, then I'll stick it.
Let me ask you, could you pull 5 for a triple on a bad day?
I don't know. I've never tried.
Well, okay, so I think you said a lot of really interesting things there.
Yeah.
Number one, why only 2 squat attempts?
I just don't really see the point of me doing a third. And I've never tried this out, so I'm gonna try it out, see what happens.
So it's more.
Yeah. I'm just gonna warm up like I would in a regular training session. I'm not gonna make small jumps because I don't do that in a regular training session. So why I start now, Um,
Mm.
it's just something I'm gonna try. We'll see what happens. Both of you are like, wow, that seems really. Dylan told me the same thing. He's like, that's stupid. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna try it anyway.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not. So I'm not necessarily saying it's stupid. I just like anything that anyone says. Like I try not to say like, oh, that's stupid. Like straight out. Like that's just like that's dumb. Like this is why they're podcasts is to inform.
That's stupid, Zach.
That's stupid. But like I like to kind of dissect it a little more. I mean, that's the point of having a podcast, right? So like, why exactly do you think it is that? Because let's say like on squat, right? Let's say you did the thing that you didn't like to do. Obviously, you like took smaller jumps on your squats, and you had 3 attempts. Do you think that that would tax you more than just having 2 attempts?
Yes, because in training I haven't been practicing with 3 attempts. I just go up to my top weight and I call it there, then go back to my back downs.
You don't think the peak will help you out with that, like the peak and taper and
But
stuff?
even in the peak, like I would just hit one top set and then just do like a couple back offs.
That's interesting.
I
Okay,
wouldn't do like one set of one, another set, and another set. I would just hit the top set, then call it a day, and then just do my how many ever back off sets I could.
so when everyone else is hitting their thirds on squat, you're just gonna be like legs crossed on a chair eating your gummy bears, like just chilling.
Yep, probably.
Nice.
I'm
Okay, so then
go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, like, I was gonna move on to the bench if you're okay
Yeah,
with
you
that,
good, dude.
because
Let's go.
obviously, like, bench is kind of your lift now.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you gotten really strong with it, and like now you're incorporating like board presses into it, which I thought was really interesting. It's like something that I've never like really thought about for a raw lifter. But like, so you said one thing that you said is really interesting. I think is that you said like, oh, I'm gonna hit this second attempt, and then we'll see what happens on the third. Why exactly do you think like that? Because I think like that kind of too.
Because I've already done it in my head. Like I see 330 and it's just 330. And, like that's it.
Yeah.
It's not really that much to me anymore. Um, 330 is just 330, and then it would be cool to hit like more, but I'm not going in with any more expectations than that. I'm going to hit the numbers that I put down. I'm going to hit, and then call it a day.
Are you
I'm not really stressed about like hitting like what numbers am I going to hit? Am I going to hit this? Like you, I just wrote it down, detail for detail, and did it in the first person. Like already did it, and I've done it. So in my brain thinks like I've done this. I'm done with this. So it's just a number I've already hit. So
Are you pulling? Are you going to be pulling conventional or sumo this meet?
conventional for sure. But yeah,
Wow.
definitely opening with 500. I'm 100% confident I'm gonna get that easily. I did it like 2 months ago, and so yeah, and then I'm definitely gonna hit 530 or something in there.
That's
Well,
nuts.
528. That's what the kilo is.
That's insane.
But
I mean,
yeah,
I always thought when you pulled sumo, I was like when I would see you pull sumo, I was like his conventional looked a little more natural. That's why I always thought when I
yeah,
saw you pull.
yeah.
I felt like you always had a natural conventional pull, and that goes back to saying like, look, man, some people just don't like sumo. Some people just won't be good at it.
Well,
No.
I'm still like at the last meetup that I picked up 490. They didn't call it for me. I don't think because my shoulders were rounded. I did 490
Uh,
sumo, and I didn't train sumo that entire time because I switched to sumo that meet because it just didn't because conventional didn't feel good, which was probably a stupid decision, but I just did it anyway.
you're still pulling 500 for an opener, dude. That's
Yeah, yeah.
like that's insane,
So
crazy.
I'm excited to
That's
see
gonna
what
be fun to
happens.
watch.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, you know who I'm excited to see compete though?
Oh, yep. I do.
Garrett. Dude, watching Garrett compete for the first time is gonna be crazy. That's gonna be nuts.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I bet you he's one of those guys that gets a lot of energy from the platform.
Dude, oh yeah. Like the other day he showed me a video. He pulled like 765 off a block pull.
Oh wow.
So we'll see what he does, man. But I'm excited to compete at this too. And going back to like the whole bench, I'm taking kind of a conservative bench. I'm kind of doing the exact opposite of what Altman's doing.
Hmm.
Like putting a lot of effort in my squat and I'm putting a lot of effort in my deadlift. And I really just want to go 3 for 3 on bench this meet so I can go 9 for 9. Because I think I go 3 for 3 pretty consistently on squats. I've done it my first 2 meets. Then I went 3 for 3 on deadlifts last meet. So if I can basically copy paste last meet, but then just get my third bench, then it'll be a perfect 9 for 9 day.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. We can continue talking about the meat after the episode.
You
But
getting tired, Seth? Old man getting tired?
yeah, my stomach hurts.
His appendix is screaming.
No, but thank you everybody for listening. We hope you learned something from the bench. We had a couple disagreements here in the episode, but educational, informational discussions. But where can people find you, Alman?
At Big Strength on Instagram.
Zach, we're gonna be able to keep up with your lifting.
Instagram name is Zach ZAC64_.
There we go.
Should make it 69.
Check me out if you want to at Seth.Todd76, and you can hit up the podcast for inquiries, questions about whatever at triple.b.podcast. Hit us up there. Thanks for listening. Check us out next week. We'll have an interesting guest. We're not sure which one, but it'll be a fantastic episode. And see you guys next week.